Oh yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the Big 12 thing is, Twitter is it's a cesspool anyway, but everybody is just guessing so much now with where it's going to go that you can go down a rabbit hole pretty fast.
Really fast. Like today is not tomorrow, right? And tomorrow is like another year from now in that whole what's going on right now. There will be a rumor won't break this one.
Right.
It will be this will get out when it's done, not when it's being rumored. I think if anything, they're going to want to be distracting people. Like, here's something. Hey, here's something. Everyone's going here. Everyone's going there. And what happens is they just feed on that. And no one's going to know until it's done. I don't believe this is something that's going to leak.
And I think the less we hear from Jamie, the better it is. I think he's so good at radio silence that I think the less we hear from him, that means it's probably going to be we're going to be all right. So.
I mean, he's shown that so many times. Like, when TJ was hired, he said nothing for a couple weeks. And when Fred was hired, he, went up and had a secret meeting, and then, a couple days later, he's like, get Fred Hoiberg as our coach. So I think it'll be, with Jamie at the helm, I think we have one of the best ADs in the country. So, having an AD that knows how to sell it, especially since he's been in Iowa State for a long time. If Jamie was I can't imagine being an AD and I don't know if Texas Tech has a new AD, but this is your first year and you're trying to sell a school that you just showed up to. I feel like that would be pretty difficult. And I think having Jamie literally build Iowa State the way it is, and we'll no better person to sell Iowa State than him.
No, for sure. This is, for a Cyclone fan, you're down by 14 at half.
Yeah.
And what coach do you want in that halftime as a fan for working for you? Jamie's the
you might want to be just a little closer. I mean, I don't know if I'm not hearing it right, Thomas, or what.
So you don't.
There we go.
You want Jamie at halftime, where we're at as a school. You want Jamie to be in there negotiating for you. That's the person you want. There's no one else in the nation that you'd want on your side than that guy who's done a better job, leading us through 2020, right, through COVID. I think he led not only the Big 12 or just Iowa State, he led the nation in how you respond to something like that through adversity. This is another, in his eyes, a piece of adversity to Cyclone fans, scary, and a piece of adversity. It's just change. Change is scary to a lot of people. I'm comfortable because I know Jamie Pollard's in charge.
Right.
He has taken us to a place. Everything he has done has taken us forward.
Right.
So no matter where we go, whatever he says that day when it gets announced, everyone should be comfortable at that point because you know who's not working for your side. Because whatever he's going to have options, obviously, or whatever options he's going to play out, he will do what's best for Iowa State because that's all he's ever done.
Right.
We have no other reason to believe anything but we will get the best and whatever best option is because he's in there working for us.
And I think his national connections, Gene Smith, Ohio State's AD, former Iowa State AD, hired Tim Floyd. Him with his Wisconsin ties, his West Coast ties, because isn't the Oregon AD his really good friend or something? So I think it's the change is probably what everybody's having a problem with because things are going pretty well for us right now, and it's like when we interviewed Todd Blythe, being an Iowa State fan, you never think you can have nice things, and now we're heading into a phenomenal year, and we're dealing with this crap. So
there's so many things usually back in the day, Gene Chizik left for Auburn, but Campbell had so many options to leave, and Jamie had Nebraska was interested in Jamie. Back then he would have been left Iowa State, but now we have a top 5 coach in America and the best AD in America. I think panic is I panic. I go sway.
Oh yeah, he's on the roller coaster, man. I mean, he is. Just every day I talk to him, up down.
But
these guys aren't going anywhere.
I'm glad I'm not in charge. Let's just put it that.
Right. I mean, we are too.
Yeah.
I'm glad Jamie's in charge.
Right.
Just someone who could be even keeled, not overly emotional. Stuff like this takes time, and Texas and Oklahoma kind of sped up the process on us, but I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, it was inevitable, right? They knew change was going to come down the pipe, and how long can it have lasted the way it was going anyway, right? I think everyone was blindly feeling comfortable. The reason it was comfortable is because it wasn't change. Right. It wasn't mean everything was obviously beautiful everywhere. We knew that 10 years ago when this all went down the last time. It was kind of one of those things where it wasn't on everyone's mind every single day.
Yeah.
So it kind of just went away.
But
it never went away. The change is happening. anytime you start with what the players can do to now, make on the likeness of themselves and the money that they can make now, that changed everything and took it a step forward.
Yeah.
That changed the whole landscape of what the NCAA is and what a player can do.
Yeah.
And I think that had something to do with this obviously as well. So people knowing that that's going to play in the future, they're trying to, you can't be a leader and plan for tomorrow. You need to be a leader and plan for 10 years from now.
Yeah.
So we have the right people leading us, thinking out further than what is the best move for us tomorrow. Well, that might be one, but it may not be for 10 years from now. And I think that's why I'm extremely comfortable with what's going on there. We have the right people for Iowa State to take us forward to wherever that is. I was like everyone else, change. Like it's stressful at first, and you take a step back. Like there's been a lot of change, and when have we ever come out of that with Jamie where we've gone backwards?
Yeah, that's true.
I haven't had that happen since I've been here, since I've been around, and so I'm very comfortable with where we're going. It's just we are changing. We can have nice things. I want to, this year when I'm on the radio, I want Iowa State fans to understand we have nice things.
Yeah.
That's what we 20 years ago or 25 years ago when I got to Iowa State, that was our goal. Like we want nice things. We started, lifting weights on a gym floor that was cement, and it was the state gym, and it was a.
So you were training when you started there. You were training at state gym.
We were at state gym.
Oh my God! In the basement?
In the basement.
Really?
Yeah.
I've been in that. When I was in school, I went there before. I mean.
Yeah, and we were conditioning on the basketball floor in there, and then sometimes you'd run outside and go on the old football field. Obviously,
wow,
is when the Jacobson building was being built.
Okay,
and so the Jacobson building at that time was beautiful. Coach McCarney brought nice things to Iowa State. That was the next step. Now you walk into the facility that's brand new that all of you will see in the fall. It is beautiful. Yeah. That started 25 years ago. His vision was, Coach Mack's vision was 25 years ahead of where we were that day.
Yeah.
And that's what's been great about Iowa State. We've had people that have had visions that are past today. They're not trying to win 4 games and then go to Auburn. We had that happen, and it makes it sets a program backwards. Coach Campbell hasn't ran his program like, how can I win to get to the Detroit Lions, right? That came out this year. He's not winning to get to somewhere. He's there because he's thinking 20 years of where we're at today. And that's what great leaders do, right? Thank God for him, because he puts us on the map as well. Who doesn't want to have Iowa State football in their conversation right now? Right. Recruits do. The conferences probably do. The other Big 12 schools do. You started becoming a foundation in the conference of a school with what he's done in the football. If
you just go back and listen to his press conference, he's literally just followed exactly how many coaches, like, opening press conference is usually like a puff piece, but Campbell's literally followed everything he said that he was going to do, and we're still on the track. Texas and Oklahoma can't ruin that for us. I think this year we're going to go out and with even more chip on our shoulder because of the last couple of weeks, I think. Right.
So you think about what he's put together with this recruiting class of 2022.
Yeah.
Right? And that class is built for 5 years from now. Right? Those players aren't going to be significant across the whole playing field for at least 2 to 3 years. Mm-hmm. Right? He has a great senior class, and to win at Iowa State, the model was, especially for us, was when we won 9 games, we had to have a great senior class. Last year they won 9 games. They have a great senior class. We're lucky. We're going to get 2 years of that leadership of that juniors and seniors that get to use another year of eligibility. That's how you win at Iowa State, is you develop your players that are 1-star, 2-star. Well, now we're getting 3 stars. Obviously, I can't imagine what those kids are going to become for themselves, but you come and you develop these players, and then they become seniors, and then they teach the juniors how to be great, and you teach the sophomores how to do things, and the freshmen how to do things, and then that's the culture that he's created there. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to build this senior class that's going to be great. They're going to be my leaders. It's peer leadership. I don't have to be the disciplinarian. I'm going to have a senior that does it. And that started 2 or 3 years ago with Lazard's class. I mean, that's Montgomery. Yeah. He showed up at the facility with no one there.
Right.
That's culture. A coach saying, "Hey, show up at 9 o'clock. We have a meeting." That's not culture. That's someone helping you understand what it takes to be successful. Culture is it's a peer-led leadership group. It's the players leading each other, and he understands that as well as anybody. And I think that's why he's landing these recruits that he is. If you look at these kids that are coming in and you're watching some of their film, These are next level players.
Oh, did you see the deadlift kid? Who was the kid that just deadlifted like 610 or something?
Yes.
Like that?
Yeah, it's a kid from Iowa. It's a
He's
kid,
from the Council Bluffs.
Council Bluffs.
picked us over Iowa, which was a whole controversy after that. Iowa fans were pretty mean to him, which and then after that, just like talking about how Iowa State's the new team in Iowa, like the cool team in town or whatever. And it's like, that dude's going to be a dude.
Oh, I hope they talk crap about him on Twitter because that's just going to fire him up even more. I mean,
yeah,
do it.
they talk crap to a 16-year-old who's deadlifting, however. I'm like,
he's
holy
deadlifting
crap.
Semi, yeah.
He is. The interesting thing, the two kids they picked up earlier in that week were two defensive ends out of Florida.
Yeah.
Those players are just as special. They're just not talked about because they're not.
They don't live around here.
Yeah, they're not here. They're not rivalry recruits.
Yeah.
They just recruited their starting defensive line basically in 1 week.
Yeah.
You know how hard that is to do?
Yeah.
Like, to pick guys up that you have a really good chance are probably going to be starters at some point in their career, and you did it in 1 week. You picked up your starters that are probably going to be 2 to 3 seasons long of starters. That is what's special. Like, he is picking players up that you know are not, hey, we got to develop them into something. These kids they're legit football players. They're going to have to get in line at Iowa State now because 5-7 years ago, they're starters year one.
Yeah.
Now they got to work through the 3 deeps, the 2 deeps, and hopefully break into the starting lineup. But from what they look like on film, those are 3 starters.
Especially, I don't remember, like, David Irving. Like, he was just like a raw guy just thrown to the wolves. Like, now Campbell can kind of be picky of, like, the personality. He has to fit the culture. We don't have to, like, reach like we used to, which is, like, a thing that I never thought was ever going to happen. And, like, it's weird to see, like, we're replacing Jaquan Bailey with the guy who led the nation in sacks, Will McDonald. And like, David Montgomery to Breece Hall, like, when me and Michael are, like, very dramatic Iowa State fans. And, like, you know, like, when you see players that are, like, so fun to watch, so special, go to the NFL, and, like, we were Iowa State fans for how long? And it took us to get NFL running back, and then literally the next one is 6th in the Heisman as a true sophomore. And, man, it's just like still new culture, like, for me to, like, go to Iowa State games, like, expecting to win. Like, that was never a thing growing up. And has Campbell building that, it's just awesome. That's all I can sum it up as. Like, when you, like, walk into Iowa State, walking your first day at Iowa State, compared to, like, when you walk in for your first job against UNI, like, look at Jack Trice, how different things are, the performance facility.
Well, the locker room. I mean, there's a couple kids that have a vlog that we've kind of connected with a little bit, and they took them through the locker room. I said, oh, my God. I mean, this place is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's next level, right?
Yeah.
And it is thinking forward. It's forward product. Like, you have to invest in that. You had good facilities before, but they're thinking further ahead when they're at today. And so winning will bring more investment in the program. And Jamie is a big part of that too, right? You have to fundraise. That doesn't.
Oh, right.
Yeah, money's not growing on trees. And that's why Coach Campbell has done an amazing job building the culture, but also building the culture with the fans where they feel part of it. Like, Coach Campbell makes all of us better. We all hear the speech, like, I got to be the best version of myself. You wake up in the morning, we have Cyclone fans. I got to be great today. You know, like, he makes you better, and you don't even know the human being. You don't get to hang out with the guy every day. He makes business leaders better. He makes business owners better. He makes kids and students better. He makes Cyclone Nation better because of what he is and how he is, right? And that is the impact that guy's had. Now, the physical things, the buildings and the facility and the stadium. You know, when I played, the end zone wasn't there. Yeah. You know, I remember there's a picture of me and the captains coming down my junior year for a game, and it's shooting towards the south end zone, and it's a high school bleacher sitting down there, basically, right? Yeah. The temporary bleachers, and no Cyclone fan can imagine that.
Have you ever seen the aerial picture of Jack Trice in the 70s?
Oh, yeah.
When it was first built, and there's nothing around it. It's like Oklahoma in 1843 or whatever, and there's absolutely nothing around it. So, yeah, it's changed a ton just in the last 20 years.
It has. Well, think where we're going.
Right.
Jamie's got a plan for the north parking lot, obviously, that will change forever.
That's a game changer, especially for before basketball games where we can hang out, like, at a restaurant area. That's going to be sick.
It will be, and that's the leadership side. What kind of revenue does that bring into the athletic department, right?
Into the town.
Into the town, into everything that they do. And we are watching great leadership, and then actually two leaders work together to build something phenomenal, and neither of them can can step over top of each other because it doesn't work. They're working together.
Yeah.
And Jamie understands what he needs to do to continue to grow. Coach Campbell is what he is. He understands what he needs to continue to grow. And they're putting us in a place where when turmoil happens, where we're sitting today, you're sitting in a good chair, right? And that's why as a Cyclone fan, you got to be comfortable. You have both athletic director and football coach, which is the big part of this realignment. They're top 5 in the nation. So if you feel like you're down 14.5 and you're the Cyclones, you got the 2 best people in the locker room firing people up to come back out on our side and see what we have coming back, right? You don't need to panic. You have the greatest leaders that we've ever had working for us right now. And that's reassuring for me. It should be reassuring for everybody else. We will be in a good place when we come out of this.
Right. So, going back to your state gym story, so it's in his lifetime. We've gone from you going in as a freshman at Iowa State, lifting weights, and if you're an Iowa State alum and you've been in the basement of state gym, you know what we're talking about before they renovated it. That angled track that was down there that you could run on, that the track team was training on. So we've gone from that to our weight facility today in 23 years. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal.
It is
so
unbelievable.
Talk about, from the time you were kind of in the middle of a metamorphosis Iowa State football too. You went in 97, came out with the best season, most wins in school history in 2000. Talk about that journey a little bit about, being able, you talk about leadership. It took a lot of leadership from you guys to be able to hang in there with, going from 3 wins your junior year to 9 wins your last year, and captain, broken feet, and all of this kind of stuff. Tell us a little bit about, I know you don't want to talk about yourself, but a little bit about your journey, because there's a lot of old Iowa State fans out there like me that want to hear, kind of some of the backstories about it.
Yeah, I can tell you a lot of backstories. We won 1 game my freshman year. We won 1 football game my freshman year. It was against Baylor, and we thought we won the Super Bowl when that game got over, right? You put all this work in. We redshirted. You play your first year, and you win 1 game. That was the first win of my career. And I'll never forget that season. The first game I ever started was my freshman year at outside linebacker against University of Iowa, second week. We got housed by Iowa. I mean, they took it to us. And that game forever changed my perspective of winning. And it wasn't, we deserved to get housed to how we played and how we prepared and how we approached a game and what we thought of ourselves walking into a game. And do we deserve nice things? At that point, we didn't think we deserved nice things, right? You just like, we'll try hard. I learned more from that loss. There's about 4 losses throughout this whole thing that I could name that I learned a lot from. That is the number 1 loss in my career that I'll remember forever, that I think turned the tide the next year, where we broke the 15-year streak in Iowa City. And it was because of that loss that we won the game the next year. Yeah. And I think to summarize those 4 years, and I'll tell you a few good stories along the way, but what we learned is how to win. And there is such a thing. People say you got to learn how to win. You have to. It is a thing. And it's the greatest thing that I've taken from football. It's the greatest thing I've taken from Coach McCarney. I mean, my son's name is Mac. And it's because he's taught me in life, like, how to win. It doesn't just on a football field. It's the things, and it's the little things you do. It's the Tuesday in May. It's the August day when no one else is around. It's not the day you show up to compete on that Saturday against Iowa, because if you think you're going to be great on that day, you're done. And that's what we tried to do our freshman year. Like, we have a great recruiting class. You have Darren Davis coming in. He's in my class. We've got Dustin Avey, who's arguably one of the best athletes to come out of high school in Iowa at one point at that time. I think he still has a 400 hurdles state record at 50 seconds or sub 50. Wow. It was a phenomenal time. And you have a bunch of Iowa kids, Midwest kids that come in, and they were good at their high schools, but we didn't know how to win at the Big 12 level. It wasn't there when we got there. We knew that. We knew we had a job to do. But we thought you could show up on Saturday like, okay, here we are. I felt like we had a better recruiting class to Iowa State that year, the 96 year when we went to Iowa State as a class. I felt like that was a better class than the class that Iowa got at that time. I felt like the next year's class was better than Iowa got. And so we were winning classes, but we were going into the game, and we were showing up that day to win. And we weren't showing up that day in May to win. And I think that's the greatest thing I took from those 4 years is when we got housed by Iowa, everything changed in my mindset. And I realized, like, are not even close to what we think is winning is all about. So we got a lot closer the next year. You know, when you look at our sophomore year, that was a rough year. I broke my foot twice. How
do you break your foot twice in the same football season?
Well, I broke it once, and I think I played with it broke, but it broke a little more, and the screw in my foot where it was broke bent, and so that was the end of that season. But yeah, I broke it against Iowa. Actually, that was my junior. My sophomore year, it was my junior year. I broke it twice, and that's where I think we were really close. We won 4 games that year.
But you had a bunch of them that were like 1 score away, right? I mean,
absolutely. Yeah, and that team, that junior year team, was as good as our senior team, the 2000 team that went 9-3. The junior year team went 4-7, and in my opinion, was just as talented as the 9-3.
But you hadn't learned to win yet because you were, you know, I read some of the score, 21-24. You know, a touchdown here, a touchdown there, which is the difference between 4 wins and 9 wins.
It is, and it's winning the close games when you get there. How do you win the close games when you get there, right? And that's, you know, I'll never forget the game against Texas where, you know, they're going towards the south end zone and they need a field goal to win. I slide through, the ball tips my fingers but goes through the uprights. If I'm a quarter inch or a half inch or an inch a little higher with my hand, I hit the ball. If I block that, it's game over. We win the game. That's how close winning is at that level, right? And that's when we started to feel like, oh, we got this. You know, we dropped an interception at Oklahoma our sophomore year. So that would have been in 1998 when we were not in a great year. And we dropped an interception, and they hit a home run later in the game. They beat us, and we would have won the game without that one play, that one interception. And that's the big difference.
Well, unfortunately, Ryan, you're not going to want to hear this, but you were a part of me teaching a team to win. So when you were in high school, I coached against you when you were a sophomore, and you were a terrific basketball player. But I was coaching a team that had never won ever. We had 1 win the year before. We had 2 wins the next year. The third year, we have 13, and we beat Humboldt your sophomore year, and they were ready to name a flipping street after me because it was such a big deal. But I know for a fact, you know, when you talk about teaching somebody to win, it is hard because when you are used to losing, and this is what Iowa State fans, in my opinion, are kind of going through. When we get in the fourth quarter now and we're down 14 points or whatever, us old Iowa State fans remember the old days where the wheels might come off. And then now we're kind of getting reprogrammed, says, no, they're not going to come off. We're going to figure out a way to win this because that's the culture. So these kids now don't remember 1989 or anything like that. I mean, so their frame of reference is totally different than mine. So, you know, you're preaching to the choir when you say teaching somebody to win is hard. And that's why I think going from your junior year to winning 9 games and winning the Insight.com Bowl and all that was a monumental part of the success we're having today because we had a glimpse of what it could be like.
We can get there, absolutely. And I think that even this class, like when you look at who's there right now, these seniors, where I thought that this class, every class is going to have that moment where I think that they get over that hump. From my perspective, when that Notre Dame game at the Camping World was that game where I think that was their moment where they learned a lot from an experience that maybe didn't go the way they thought it was. Yeah. If someone wants to go watch that game, you go watch that game. They're like 5 plays away, 6 plays away from that thing being tight and close and within a score. And Notre Dame had, if you look at the draft,
they had dudes.
They had some dudes.
Claypool's
unbelievable, right? And he beat us up a little bit. You know what? The good thing is we lined up against them, and it kind of shocked us at first. And you just didn't know how to respond to it, but the guys kept playing the entire game, and that was the coolest thing about that. Yeah. They were beating us up pretty good after we had some unfortunate plays, but we were 6 plays away from being in that game. We don't fumble that football. We're fine. We made a lot of mistakes early on that we'd never make, and then they hit a couple plays, and once momentum happens against you're on the wrong side of the momentum, you're in trouble. And that's just kind of what happens. But that team went toe-to-toe with a BCS team at that time. So now you're walking into a season, they've been to the stage.
Right.
They've sat at the table.
Yeah.
They understood and have seen what it takes to get to that level. I unfortunately only got to do that my senior year and have 9-3, and then what I wouldn't have given to have everyone come back and go, let's go do this again. Because here's some things I learned.
Especially if the COVID happened back then, you'd have one more extra year like coming back. That's what Eisworth has. It's what a bunch of seniors that could be pros maybe, but they come back to get their degrees, and it's weird how like that group, like you said, went to Notre Dame, played against Notre Dame, and like so many times we've been close to Oklahoma. But me growing up, I never thought we'd ever, because like we would just get murdered by Oklahoma, and then like the last 3 or 4 years we've been like one possession away, and it'll be interesting seeing what happens this year.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great game this year. I mean, I cannot wait for that game. It's gonna be a good game. But I can't wait for you and I. Like,
right?
You know what I mean? Like,
I can't wait for the tailgate part.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean,
let's turn this thing back on again.
Yeah, I mean, I just said, I said to keep this off of the explicit thing with podcast, this is going to be a manure show at the tailgate lot because it's going to be like a big family reunion. Yeah. You have a bunch of people that have used to tailgate. I mean, I've got a buddy that has an LLC for his tailgate that has had it for 25, 30 years, and they didn't get to do it last year.
Right.
And so that parking lot, you better get there really early if you want to get a spot, because I think it's going to be a lot of fun, but it could be a potential mess too.
It could be. But remember what got Coach Campbell to that job.
Right.
That parking lot and that experience brought Coach Campbell to Iowa State.
Yep.
The fan base. If you remember his trip from Toledo to
Yeah,
town.
yeah,
It's
right.
Like wait a minute, this is a really cool place.
Yeah.
And it is. It's
the tailgating atmosphere at Iowa State is, I've heard people compare it to Arrowhead with the Chiefs. Yeah. I mean, just because the layout is easy to get in and out of, there's plenty of parking, you're not in the middle of town. I think that's got a lot to do with it too, the geography of it.
Absolutely. It's a great setup for us.
Yeah.
What, like building the stadium back then, do you think they even thought of that? Like the tailgating experience?
No,
it was
if you've
just
seen
like
the old pictures of it, it is because they had the land.
Yeah, it was just
and the other place didn't have, what did the old stadium hold? 16,000 people? I mean, it was really small. And did you know that the old bleachers to that, or the Dayton Rodeo?
Oh, they really?
That's where they went. They bought them. Anyway, so that's another story. But I remember when I was little, my parents had season tickets in Hilton when it was built. And I'd go to Iowa State games from the time I was like 7 years old. And I remember driving by the old stadium, but my dad was a farmer, so we never went to football games. But, yeah, it is really kind of – now I saw a picture just today of the north end zone and how that's changing. I mean, so –
I can't wait for everyone to see it. It is beautiful. Yeah. I've had the chance to be there and see it in the facility and everything with it. It is beautiful. You can now walk around the entire outside of that stadium inside the stadium. So it's a great atmosphere.
So but getting back to your days, you played in the J.J. Moses returning the opening kickoff game against Iowa, right?
Yeah, reverse.
Yeah. I wasn't there yet. I had to park at Iowa City West to get there, and I was still walking, and I heard the crowd go crazy. And then we walk in, it's 7-0, and of course we missed that play. But what was that game like? I mean, that was the thing that got us a lot of momentum heading into the 9 wins.
It did, and the interesting thing about that play, everybody on the sideline knew what play was coming. So prior to the game, we knew what our first play was going to be called in that game, and it was JJ reverse. And we had some things on film that the coaches had seen and said, hey, this is going to be perfect. Mm-hmm. But again, making special plays like that. That's not, hey, he just walked into the end zone. He made an amazing cutback at the end of that run.
Right, he ducked under somebody because he was, how tall was JJ?
I hope JJ's not watching. 5'2", I don't know. He's a little guy. He's probably 5'6", but he's probably 5'8". I'm guessing, obviously, probably 5'8".
If you watch the highlight of that, he ducks. A guy kind of goes over him, and he kind of ducks under him to go in the end zone. Yeah, that was a cool play.
Yeah, and he was such a great person for our team. That J.J. Moses was a huge inspiration to our football team and a leader for our football team because of the energy he brought to practice and the energy he brought to the games and the bus and the travel and his just his spirit, right? It's just something special. And he's still doing it for the Houston Texans. There's a reason he's still around football because the Texans are, hey, you were good for us, but, we don't want you to go anywhere. You're an amazing individual. We want you around our program. Like, that's the kind of guy J.J. Moses is. And it's just cool to see him still around football because anyone would take him. They'd want him around his players. That's what J.J. Moses was, just an amazing athlete, but he's even a better leader of people and a person to be around to help.
Yeah, I've been doing like a play every day since like 170 days, counting down to the season, and I had to go back and search for videos for like the upper hundreds. And J.J. Moses, I hadn't seen any highlights of him, and he is good. He was good.
He was really good. He was special. If J.J. Moses is 5 inches taller,
Right.
you know, I don't know. We're all going to Canton to celebrate him. You know,
Sure.
that's what kind of athlete he was.
Yeah.
He just unfortunately was 5'8", and that's what made him him. So it's not unfortunate, but it's just he was a special talent that we had.
Sure.
And like probably as you said, like him and David probably have very similar like character thing because like David was like a driver force of the culture along with Campbell, and it kind of sounds very similar to what David did at Iowa State, but
it is very. Yeah, I think you're right. That's a good. They are very similar. I never looked at it that way, but that's exactly what JJ was to us as well.
And like you guys weren't on TV as much, so I don't
Right,
have any highlights.
It's funny. Some of the best Iowa State games that on a 9-3 team, no one ever saw. I think in my opinion, if someone said a 9-3, go watch a game that would define our football team. There's 2 games, and one was at Oklahoma State, where Lane Danielson's a freshman and catches a slant across the middle.
Yep.
People have seen that play. Watch if it's on film somewhere. That is a game that if you watch front to back, that was an amazing football game. And the other one, and we were down in that football game. We had to come from behind to win. It was a tough environment. It was a great football game. So you talk about some of the losses and learning how to win. We had gotten beat the week before by Nebraska. And we were beating Nebraska the week before. And Nebraska at that time with Eric Crouch. And
It's like Alabama back then.
they
right?
were the Alabama at
Right.
the time. And we had them. We had them on the ropes. And again, it's one of those. That was our Notre Dame game. You get there and then you just don't get there. And so what happens the next week? We get into a tough spot at Stillwater at Oklahoma State. And what happens? Lane Danielson, a freshman, cuts across the middle and Sage and hits him in stride, and we score and win the game. Then we go to Boulder and we're down 14.5.
Was that in snow?
In snow.
Yes, I remember that one.
Oh, it was miserable. I mean, I started my hand warmer on fire on the sideline. It was a disaster of a game for weather, but we were down 14.5, and we walked out. It wasn't like, oh, let's go give it a good run. It's like, we're going to go win this football game. There wasn't not one senior left that locker room thinking, let's get this close. It wasn't even an option. And I will go back to the game against Nebraska earlier where we had them and we didn't finish. We just didn't finish the game. Like we were almost, oh, wow, we're excited. We're in this thing. We shouldn't be here. Colorado's like, no, we got this. We're going to win the football game. And that was an amazing game too. So that 2000 season, that Oklahoma State game and that Colorado game, those are 2 phenomenal football games to go watch. I know that's before your time, but
I did find the video of like the Pete Taylor highlights of the Okie State game, and like there was so much chippiness going on during that game. Like how many celebration? I looked every time we made a play, there was like a flag for celebration because we were just talking smack. Do you remember that at all?
Absolutely. Yeah. I loved every minute of it. But I was on defense, right? It was chippy, and it's 2 teams. Oklahoma State at the time was very similar to us trying to break through, and we were breaking through. They're trying to break through, trying to do some great things. And it was a very chippy game. But we came out on top, and it was one of my favorite memories.
Was it?
I don't believe so.
I think
I think I remember listening to it on the radio.
No, it was literally the Cyclones.tv, like the highlight version is the only reason why I even know about that, because I think it was like one of the last touchdowns, and then like Pete Taylor's like, oh, they better stop celebrating, they're gonna get flagged again, and then like Eric Heff's was like, oh, there it is.
Yep. We earned a few of them. There was no doubt, but it was to the point where that's where the game was going, and some you don't want to be the team getting penalties, obviously, but you also have to step up to the intensity level that the game is, and that's where that game went. And that's what I say. That game was a blast to play in.
Yeah.
And one that I think it's one of those ones you wish every Iowa State fan was able to see, because that's TV at the time was different.
Yeah.
You played national television 2-3 times a year,
right?
Or even regional is like a big deal. And now every game's on TV.
Like just like because of COVID, now like middle school games are on TV. Just think of like the
lacrosse. What was the thing that was on yesterday? The sign spinning national championship was on ESPN last night.
Yeah,
sign spinning. And then there was the cherry pit spitting contest. And so we've gone from that football game not being able to find a spot on television to watching people spin signs.
I think, like Mac's last game and Jack Trice, I don't think it was on TV.
Missouri one?
Even that one.
Forever. I'll remember that forever. I cried walking out of the stadium, actually. I mean, even now it's like emotional.
Yeah.
Were you at that game?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember right where I sat.
Yeah.
know, I remember exactly where I sat. So my brother played for Coach Mack and Coach Chiswick as well at the time. But like I said, my son's name is Mac for a reason.
Yeah.
And I've known Mac since he was a third grader, and I've never made the connection. That's how dumb I am. I can't believe that I never – he spelled the same way in the whole bit. I mean, I can't believe I didn't –
Yeah, he was special for Iowa State.
Yeah.
Like he was the original version, or like the vision of where we are today. He talked about this then.
Yeah.
He talked about this then. He talked about our senior year, and you know, as you're thinking and preparing for games, he goes, think about 20 years from now. When you come back to the college and you come back to Iowa State, how do you want to be remembered? They don't bring back 3-9 teams. They bring back 9-3 teams. You know, and that was our vision when we walked in that season. We talked about that all the time. How do you want to come back as a senior class? Because you got to come back. They don't say, hey, this is the class from 97 to 2000. They said, this is the class of 2000.
Right.
You're remembered as a class as you graduate. And so that is what is exciting for me right now. We have great leadership at the top for our team right now. We have great football players that have seen a lot of football action that have a goal not for themselves. You don't come back to Iowa State and pass the draft because it's about you. You come back to Iowa State to pass the draft because you want something greater for this university and greater for yourself. And that's what's cool about where we're at as a program.
Like Campbell's recruiting players that don't remember when Iowa State was bad. That's how that's how crazily Campbell's just shifted the fan base's even thought process. Like, we won the Fiesta Bowl, for God's sakes. Like, when we went from then, and then like the last bowl we had was the Liberty Bowl with Alan Lazard flipping the helmet. But before that was the 2009 Austin or Not. It was on the NFL Network. Remember that? It was just crazy how much time's changed, and yeah, we're just gotta enjoy every second of it.
So when you were growing up as a Cyclone, did you grow up as a Cyclone fan?
I did, a Cyclone, yeah.
So, because the late 70s was another really good time for Iowa State football with Earl Bruce and Mike, Mike Stensrud and all those guys. And I know you're a mentor for our current players. Did any of those guys have any say, and were they involved in the program at all back then? Any of the few NFL guys we had or leaders that came back from, Randall's, been a real estate guy in Ames forever. He was part of that team. And there was Bostic, I believe, was a middle linebacker. Mike Stensrud was from Lake Mills, played in those teams. Any of those guys, were they involved with you guys?
Well, Stensrud was because his son Andy played.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So he came back, and so we were really introduced to that team because of Stensrud. Okay. And then that kind of interesting. Then you learn about Tom Randall and what he is, and he was a great football player. The problem is when you go up and down, like, Thomas, you don't remember when we were great, 9-3. Like, that was a good football team.
Yes, yeah.
We were 1 year. I wish if that was our junior year and you have one more shot at it, we're a really good football team. Yeah. We have guys drafted. We have multiple guys that retired. You have Reggie Hayward, who at 1 year, I believe, was the highest paid free agent in the NFL. You got James Reed, who played, I believe, 7 to 9 years in the NFL, is retired now. Sage Rosenfels, quarterback in the NFL, 10, 11 years. J.J. Moses. I go to camp. Every defensive lineman. So we had, in our senior year, there were 6 of us that were in NFL camps. Wow. Starting forward and the 2 guys behind. Jordan Carstens was a backup for us.
Durande, did he go too?
Kevin Durande went to camp. So we were this close to being the next step of the 9-3. Like, you just didn't. The problem is then the next year we were good, the next year we were good, the next year. But the problem is it takes one. Like, winning is a habit, but so is losing. And it takes 1 year of losing, and if it's followed up by another year of losing where people just get comfortable with whatever the process was to that, then that becomes your habit, and that becomes your culture. You know what I mean? And that's – the losing habits are easier than the winning habits. And so if you have that one bad year, and then you go through a cycle of 3 to 5 to 7 years of trying to catch back up. Coach Rhodes came back here and actually saved the program at the time when he walked in here, if you remember. Yeah. Coach Rhodes had saved the program. He had opportunities to go all over the place and coach and leave Iowa State. Yeah. Coach Rhodes loved Iowa State and did everything he could. It got to a point where he got it to where he could get it to, and we had to go in a different direction. Coach Rhodes saved Iowa State after Chiswick walks away. And
sure.
And he loved our team, our players, our fans, and brought the excitement back to the program. He's all over ESPN. If Jamie doesn't make that hire at that time, where are we at today?
That's correct, yeah.
Because remember what I said and what Coach Campbell said, he came here to play and he fell in love with Iowa State because of that stadium.
Parking lot, yeah.
That parking lot. And if you make the wrong hire and the wrong culture, That experience doesn't happen, and I don't know where that's at.
Sure.
So the reason we are today and why you haven't, would have remembered because we took that dip. We weren't able to keep it going forward.
Yeah.
With Campbell, I feel very comfortable. I think everybody should. You look at this recruiting class coming in. That's your enjoyment as a fan 3 years from now.
Yeah.
Enjoy today. Don't worry. They'll develop. They'll become seniors someday.
Right.
And then the next class will become that group. And then the kids that are sophomores and eighth graders now will remember this class because that culture they built. And David Montgomery will be remembered forever because the program's going the right direction. The problem with ours is it rose, flattened out, dipped a little bit, and then we had to build it back up, and here we go again.
Yeah.
And so it's I love where we're going, but it just takes 1 year of losing to change habits, and as long as you can have consistent leadership like we do, we'll be just fine.
How much will this year, like the COVID year obviously was terrible for the athletic department and all that, but like having the extra year of like the guys that were like building up muscle and like were usually thrown out on the wolves, but now they can be a little more patient. How much do you think that will be like good for Iowa State? Like teams like Iowa State where players are usually leave early, but they usually come and stay and develop. Having one more extra year of that, how much do you think that will impact Iowa State like 2 years from now?
Big time. So there's 2 safeties at Iowa State that you don't even know who they are yet. You're going to know who they are.
Yeah.
And
Better than Hasheem Young.
There's 2 safeties that you're going to know who they are.
Hasheem Young is one of our favorites. I mean, we were so – it was like somebody shot our dog when he got kicked out of the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah.
No, the Big 12 championship game.
Big 12 championship game.
I think everyone loves him. What's exciting to me, so I go to spring practice, late spring. That actually was their last practice of the spring. I was ecstatic. And what I was ecstatic about is everyone knows about the guys.
Sure.
The good thing is, like, if it's possible, Charlie Kohler looks better. If it's possible, Mike Rose looks better. And what I mean by looks better, they're developing. Their bodies are developing. They look different. They look like they're still growing as players and athletes. Like they look bigger. Brees Hall looks bigger and better. But what excites me is I go to practice and I talk to Derek Hoosier, who's the recruiting coordinator. I sit by him a lot when I'm there, and I look at these 2 safeties like, who are those guys? Because we don't have safeties that look like that. And they're not able to beat out our starting safeties. They're not there yet. But I'm going to say if something happens or Hasheem comes in like a rocket like he always does, and we've got 2 dudes behind these guys that are ready to play football.
Yeah.
They don't look like what we used to have standing behind the first team. And that's what's pretty awesome is the first team is being pushed by the second team. The second team is being pushed now by the third team.
Wow. When
Campbell gets here, you have 22 guys that are comfortable. I don't know. Is there 6 guys on the team comfortable with their starting spot right now? 7? I'm going to tell you what, the health of a program, the less that are comfortable, the better we are. You don't want them to walk into camp and say, hey, here's our 22, because then you're pretty, like, leveled out. It's going to be hard to beat Charlie Kohler out of tight end position right now, right? Like, I'm pretty confident that Brock's going to be our starting quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, Hunter Deckers, you want to see him sling a football?
Yeah. We've heard really good things about Hunter Deckers.
I am ecstatic to watch this kid play football more. And you watch him in practice, you watch how he prepares, but guess who he got a chance to watch Brock prepare. Mm-hmm. That's what Brock brings to the culture of Iowa State. You know what I mean? And so I'm as excited about this year as I am the following year and the following year. It's like Cyclone fans, quit being nervous about showing up this year. This isn't like our one shot. No, this is not there's some dudes here and there's some dudes coming that make our 3 deep and 2 deep nervous because they see this recruiting class coming in like, I got to get better, right? So the game as a Cyclone fan has ever known it is completely different. It is not the same program that and have been scared of the last 10 years.
I said that when we talked to Seneca, I said, when you start off a house of fire at the beginning of your year, the Florida State game, and, go to Iowa and have the big comeback and all that kind of stuff, and then we ran out of gas in the season, I said, do you think the difference between now and then is depth? Because we didn't have much depth back then, and guys got beat up, and then by the end of the season, we're running on one leg. I mean, so that's what I think is a huge difference, like you said, between the past and now is that, if some guy goes down, you break your foot twice or whatever. I mean, we've got a guy that's going to come in. Like who's the kid from Chicago that came in and played nose guard. Never heard of him, and then he comes in and plays really well when Lima goes down.
Remsburg?
No, that's an offensive
right
lineman.
tackle.
Simmons?
No, the
There's so
defensive lineman.
Oh.
Defensive lineman.
Isaiah Lee?
Isaiah Lee, yeah.
Yeah.
He
Like-
came in and played really well when
We played-
Lima was hurt. Or
Where West
whatever.
Virginia, Lima had a concussion, and then, like, I saw that right before the kickoff. I'm like, because, like, I'm so old. I'm like, there's no way they're going to get 11 yards a carry, and it's going to be one of those nights. And then he just, it was back on, like, the red shirt thing. He was still a redshirt freshman. So I was like, man, this is different.
Yeah.
And that's, you go back to when we started this journey, when we were 1 win. The reason I played D tackle that year, remember, I started as a middle linebacker that year. By the end of the year, I was playing defensive tackle because I was one of the best 11 defensive players in the football team. I wasn't one of the, you know what I mean? Like, I was the starting middle linebacker and the backup defensive tackle, right? Like, you think about where that program was at that time.
Yeah. Didn't you have to put on like 75 pounds to play D-line?
Then we did, yeah. So I played at Nebraska my freshman year at 245 pounds
Holy
against
mackerel.
5 All-American linemen, or felt like 5 All-American. I mean, I know they were great at the time, and I came back to the huddle. So first play that I'm on the field, they run their veer option at us. I wake up 10 yards down the field, and all I remember is I can see out the side of my on my helmet. My shoulder pads were the string between the shoulder pads. That's completely broke. We wore knee braces at the time. Both of them are around my ankle.
Oh, my gosh.
And that was the first plays in the game. Like, that's what we were then. That's what – you wonder why we weren't winning. Well, I was the D tackle 10 yards down the field. I weighed 245 pounds. I was a starting middle linebacker. That's like Mike Rose.
Right.
When Iowa comes down, hey, Mike, you're going to play tackle this week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's where the program was. And that's what was amazing. Think what Coach Mack was able to do. Go from that to, like, that was a bad option. And think that coming to where it went to 9-3, and then the next year, and then the next year, and then the next year of bowl wins. That's what's cool. What Campbell has been able to do is another level now. Like, it's like, I am telling you, the backups that you see, if one goes down, I mean, Peterson out of Eastern Iowa, number 55, the defensive end, he's not even starting right now.
Zach Peterson?
Yeah.
Zach Peterson.
Yeah, he's been a stud for a couple of years now.
Not even starting.
Yeah.
Isn't he like special teams
No, yeah, he did.
awesome and special teams? I mean,
Yeah, Will McDonald and him are on special teams. I'm like, those dudes are on special teams. They're,
this
they're,
guy-
they're
those two-
that fast.
Yeah, these two guys walk in this room right now, you go, you're not starting.
Yeah.
And now Will's going to start and have a special year, I believe. And people around the nation will know Will by the end of the year. But how is Zach Peterson?
yeah.
But that's where we're at. That is the level of play being played at Iowa State. But guess what? Those 3 front defensive linemen, they know Zach's behind them, and they know how hard Zach works. And that is that is the guy that makes us go to another level. We're good because of our good players. If we're going to be great, it'll be because of guys like Zach.
And
doing
Jarrell
great things.
Brock, would you put him in the same category? I mean, he's a stud too.
He is a stud. And
Plays a couple plays. He's a great blocker on pass downs.
And like Dylan Sainer with the tight ends, Chase Allen, and just the amount of receivers we have, and cornerbacks. Like, cornerbacks used to get toasted but now we just throw guys out there. Because, like, whenever a DB got dinged up and they threw out a guy, I'm like, oh, no, there's a 70-yard touchdown. But nope.
Yeah.
Like Anthony Johnson back when he was a freshman, he was a stud, and who's still a stud. And Detrone Young's he was throwing the wolves, but he's gotten a lot better too. And yeah, it's weird trusting a coach like, oh, he got like all these like recruits that are not like the stars, but like David was a 2-star. So like, you got to throw that out because Campbell knows exactly what he's doing.
he offers before other people, and he does it early because he watches film, and he does it off of film. He's so confident and comfortable in what he's doing, and I think that, how that – I mean, Derek Hoosier is the recruiting director. I don't know what his exact title is, but Derek Hoosier's done an amazing job putting these classes together. He's the one kind of directing traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Nate Shalehassen.
Yeah, Chillhouse.
Excuse me. So that guy can recruit.
That's what everybody says. I mean,
so what they've been able to do to put these kind of classes together is unbelievable in what they're bringing in, because these players are coming in ready to play. You talk about Anthony Johnson. That guy is in my opinion, the most underrated football player in the Big 12. The reason a lot of Cyclone fans, if they don't know about him, is you know why they don't know about him? Because they don't throw at him.
Yeah.
Go ahead, throw at him. And by the way, he's covering some of the best receivers in the Big 12 and in the nation, and you don't hear his name called a lot. You know why? Because they don't want to go that way. You know, and then you got a guy that people will know about eventually is TJ Tampa. He's a defensive back or a corner coming out of
People
Tampa.
on Twitter know he is because
Yeah.
like when he was in high school, is just slamming dunks. He was good. Like obviously the prom era faded out, but like looking at his highlights and like his athleticism is like I've never like for basketball like we haven't seen that since Rashawn Clark, and now he's being a DB at Iowa State, and that dude will be special, I think.
You will. So I ran into him at the Camping World, but he's a high school player still.
Oh yeah.
And they happened to be in the same parking lot, and I recognized him because at the time he had just committed, and I had a conversation with he and his dad, and that two awesome people, right? That's what Campbell looks for too. You have to be if you're in that locker room, you're a great person. You can pretty much count that, right? That you can't be in there and be a slug or someone that's going to be a culture breaker or someone that the players don't want to be around or coaches don't want to be around because they don't let that happen. No. TJ Tampa is a great person. He's a good individual. He comes from a good family, meeting his dad, great person. But again, TJ, he's learning from Anthony Johnson right now. And so when Anthony's gone next year, and I can't wait till that guy can tell his story. His personal story is an amazing story, but TJ will be the guy behind him. And if something does, you know, God forbid, we're playing football, people get hurt.
Right.
You got a guy back there that can step in right now and play good football.
Yeah. Right. I lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. It's bad to do on a podcast.
Yeah.
You can cut it. You can do whatever you want.
That's right. That's why he gets paid the big bucks.
Yeah, right. And just like the character thing is such a huge thing. Like Campbell's first class is so much different from this class because like we had they're more of a reach of players that like with personality that didn't fit, but those are gone. He can be so picky, and yeah, I don't even know what I'm saying, but
yeah, it's hard not to get excited listening to you talk about him because we know that you've got the inside track on most of the stuff. And I haven't been to a practice, and you know, on the names that you're throwing out that we know are just purely from Twitter rumors and everything else. But talk about a little bit about, you know, and maybe I don't know what you can talk about, but your mentor role with these kids. I mean, you know, what is that like? I mean, that's when you say talking about a story that you hope comes out someday about a kid personally. You know, what are you doing with that to help guiding these kids?
So the day that I knew Coach Campbell was going to be a great coach is when I went to their team meeting room when I got a call one day, say, hey, Coach Campbell wants to bring about 15 to 20 guys back, you know, from earlier years, you know, and from all different kinds of backgrounds. I'm in the financial services industry. There's people from the law enforcement industry. There's individuals from the engineering industry. And one of the first things that he wanted to put into place was I want my athletes and all my players mentored so when they aren't able to play in the NFL or if they can't transition to the pro game, how do I transition to life? And we had a meeting in their team meeting room, and his pyramid, he has a pyramid up on the team meeting room that talks about what their foundational structures are. It has nothing to do with don't giving up big plays or, you know, 300 yards passing a game, or it had everything to do with say thank you, say please, be a great person. And when he brought us in at the time, they were still building something. People were intrigued by Coach Campbell, but they haven't started winning. He understood what it was going to take to win and develop people. What he did then to bring in these players to help develop them personally, like bringing myself back and a lot of other players that played in the past, is now getting recruits to come in 2022. Because Coach Campbell cares about his players more than anyone, probably in college football. I don't know how someone can care more about a player than Coach Campbell and the love that he has for them. But at the same time, I don't know of a coach that has more love for him than the players have for him as well, because they understand that. It goes both ways. And so he built this literally to give the players an avenue to talk about their career after football. So, for example, J.D. Wagner was one of the ones I was able to get to know. He's a hoot. He's been in Humboldt, Iowa, obviously, before. And I still talk to J.D. We text and talk, and he's become a good friend of mine. And he's a hoot. But we had an amazing conversation with J.D. Wagner, his dad, and myself on a call after J.D. graduated and what he wanted to do with life. And it was like a deep conversation, and that all went back to Coach Campbell hooking us up. We didn't talk about, hey, tell me about the game this week. Tell me about, hey, why are you not playing more? You should do this. Or why are you guys doing that? It was all about, hey, what do you want to do when you're done? What does 5 years look like from now? What's 20 years? What do you see yourself doing? How do you see yourself living? Where do you want to live? What does your career look like? And that was my job. And so he's doing great. He's down in Texas now. He gets to work with his dad and be around his family. And I get to follow him on Twitter, and it's amazing, on Snapchats to see what he's up to. Yeah. But Steve Wortell is another one who's a long snapper for the Rams. Was another one. Amici Walker, who's out east. He's a teacher that lives out east. Joel Lanning. I had a chance to work with a little bit with Joel Lanning, and possibly we'll work with him in the future as well. So you create these relationships with these players way above and beyond, and that's what Coach Campbell wants. He wants his players developed into men, not into football players alone. And so he understands if you're healthy at home, you can be healthy at the field. If you're unhealthy at home, you cannot be healthy at the field. And that goes for life. If you're not healthy at home, it's really hard to be healthy at the office. And it's hard to be, if you're healthy at home, you're pretty good at the office usually. They go hand in hand, and Coach Campbell really understands that.
So I know a lot of, in my business world, that, a lot of things went remote in the last 18 months, and everybody I deal with is sick of Zooms. And I know some corporations are saying, well, we don't think we're going to have an office anymore because it's easier to do remote, and some people like it better, and they like having a tie on while sitting in their underwear and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so, but I've always said, how do you build a culture of a company when nobody gets to know anybody personally because it's all via Zoom or whatever? How did Campbell keep everybody together during the crazy time of shutdowns and having to do workouts in a garage or whatever they were doing around town? I mean, how was that? How did they handle that? Do you know?
I don't know the specifics of it. I don't think that was. I don't know. I've never really asked. That's a great question. I don't know the answer to. What I do know, he did an amazing job. You just won the Fiesta Bowl, right? You just beat Oklahoma, and debatable. You get that thing plays another 3 minutes out in the Big 12 championship. You're Big 12 champions. It's whatever he did. He found a way to have success in during adversity. So I don't know the specifics of what he did. Other than I know this, he's built a culture where the players hold themselves accountable for each other. And I think when we won 9 games, we did the same thing. No coach had to yell at anybody, at a player, for being lazy. No coach had to yell at a player to go to class. No coach had to yell at another player for not being where they need to be or lining up it properly on defense. Every once in a while they'd yell at you, obviously, because they have to. It's their job. But you didn't want to let the guy next to you down.
Sure.
And that's where the program's at right now at the highest level. They showed up and did what was necessary at home because they knew that, that Brees was doing what he needed to where he was at, and Brock was doing what he needed to where he was at, right? And so, and those are the big names. But what the hard part is, how do you get 100 guys to do that?
How do you get the second and third string guys to do that too?
Yeah, and they do.
Right.
Because of the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's.
I had to be hard. I mean, I can't imagine, with the facilities that we have, and I've heard stories about them, because we had a new strength coach come in about the same time this all hit, right?
This was their first year.
And so just from hearing what Trevor Ryan has said about, different, how they did workouts and everything, and that's the logistics of it. But then how do you still keep people caring about, each other when you can't be physically around them? And I'm sure they got around each other more than they'll ever tell anybody. But because I think I've seen it in schools that I deal with or work or everything, that it's just when people get together now, you can see that is something that's irreplaceable.
It is.
That's what the whole tailgate thing I think is going to be like too.
Yeah, and that's so. Mark Coburley is the head trainer for Iowa State.
Been there forever.
He has been. He was there when I was there. That guy, he did get a lot of accolades last year, and he should. He's always been an amazing trainer. He cares about the athletes. He understands when to push them because there's a difference between injured and hurt, and he's really good about understanding both. And I think Mark Coburley was a big part of making that a successful year as well. It took everybody, right? And Mark Coburley was a big part. Campbell's a big part. The strength and conditioning program was a big part because, how do I lead these people, right? Yeah. So just culture will beat strategy every day. And I will tell you what got them through last year, probably more than anything else, was their culture. Because I think every school probably had a strategy to lift weights or to run on their own. But the culture was what holds the people accountable to having success.
Sure.
And to actually executing what the plan is.
Yeah, I think we were the only school that a game didn't get canceled or altered because of COVID. And I mean, there's 2 teams, but I think we were always available when it came time to, and I don't think that was a mistake at all.
No, they you know how hard it is to lock yourself down as a college kid, as a 21-year-old?
Especially when you're just a stud, like Purdy and Breece Hall. Breece Hall's like on Heisman watches, and then he just has to go at Breece Hall and micros, and they all room together. I guess that probably helps when they all have to do it together. But yeah, that I couldn't imagine being Heisman and the attention you're probably getting from other people, and man, that'd be extra hard.
It made the coach's job harder, obviously, and I think the name and I told when we interviewed a couple other guys, I've said the name, image, and likeness thing has made the coach's job harder too, because now you're managing another piece of their life that could go south if it's not taken care of, in my opinion. I mean, I think. What do you think about this whole thing? Do you think I know there's going to be some bumps in the road, but I think it could be a mess, if somebody doesn't get a handle on it.
I think there's going to be departments in these universities running it in the future. Yeah. I mean, you're going to have law departments having to like any of us else in corporate America, you can't just, type an email or a form letter and send it out to the world because you need it approved, and so there's going to have to be attorneys that are going to have to be a part of this at some point. I think there's going to be a department in every university that's going to run this and help the athletes, brand themselves, not to restrain them, but actually to help them do it. But at the same time, you can ruin your brand really quick too.
Sure.
No one's talked about that. There's going to be athletes that are going to ruin their brand through this. It may help in some situations, but there's going to be opportunities where kids will do something a 19-year-old would do, and it ruins their brand, and it's going to cost a 19-year-old millions of dollars.
Yeah. And I think and companies go through the same thing, though. If a company wants to sign on with X player to represent their company, they have to vet them pretty hard, because if they all of a sudden do something that is all over social media or whatever, now their investment has gone away. So it's you could equate it to that condo collapsing in Miami. You put a lot of money into $1.5 million condo, and tomorrow it's worth zero because it's laying on the ground. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you invest a lot of money in a kid and then he does kid things that aren't very smart, now your investment's out the window.
I love it. Corporate America now gets to feel what it's like to be a head football coach. Right? A head football coach, your livelihood and success is dependent on an 18 to a 21-year-old.
Yeah.
Right? And now
reading an 18-year-old is pretty easy, right?
I know. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen. I think that there's going to be success behind this. I believe that we don't want to hold kids back. If someone's willing to invest in you, I don't think someone should be able to hold that back. That is
right. No, I agree.
Because they've been in the gym, they've been developing as an athlete, they've invested in themselves. It may not have been monetarily, or probably was, but they've invested the blood, sweat, and tears. Why can, we are where we are, and I think that while it was uncomfortable for me to say this, the more I've thought about it, why should someone, because that they are here, they can't get paid? If you're at a corporation, and they said, because you're 18, we're not going to pay you, but we'll pay you when you're 22. That doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. I've always thought it was BS too. I mean,
it is. And so as long as the NCAA can keep their hands around it without squeezing it too tight, and then the universities are going to have to invest in a department, almost like an agent basically, or something with a legal department that's going to help them manage this, because business deals can go bad too, and that can ruin a kid's football career, and that can go the wrong path as well. So we see it in the NFL and the NBA. It can also happen to kids that are, leaving high school a year early and going to take this money.
Right.
Well, just looking at the NCAA, if they had a leader like Jamie Pollard or Matt Campbell, where they actually thought about 20 years ahead, the transfer portal now thing, the name, image, and likeness, just drop down our doorstep with no planning. I don't think there. It's just it's gonna be chaos, and I hope we'll have mentorships like you talking to players. I think that would be a huge part of seeing 10 years from now how you could show you were talking to players about business and actually how to run it, and like the taxes and all that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. That's the wild card in this is I think the IRS is going to have something to say about this, because if they're going to have that money, the IRS is going to probably start keeping track of. So now, if you're going to take that money and you're say that's taxable, what are you going to say about scholarships or any other benefit? Now, if you turn them into employees, now you're talking about workman's comp. You can fire an employee. So that's the part that I hope somebody has thought out somewhere, because if you give a kid $1 million and all of a sudden now 2 years from now they haven't paid any taxes on it, you don't want them going Wesley Snipes and be in jail for tax evasion or something because somebody led them down the wrong path.
Right, and it's going to happen.
Yeah,
right? We know that. Like it's more money, more problems, and it's one of those kind of situations. Is the university has to be smart about what are they doing for that. You can't ignore that this changed. If anything, you should invest in it. And I think that's change makes everyone uncomfortable. You instead of worrying, the change happened. Move past it. How are you going to invest in it to grow with it? Because you have to. You can't change what's in the past. And so that's what's, I think Iowa State will be in a good place. We have the right leadership there. I'm not worried about it. But there is going to be kids that will ruin their football career, or they'll ruin their advertising career on something they do off the field. And it's unfortunate to watch a 19-year-old that's worth millions of dollars do that. It'll be uncomfortable. And just it'll be, with Twitter, and you can't go to a bar and do something dumb or have a drink when you're 20 and not 21, and someone's going to have you on that.
Yeah.
And then you got to have that sponsor, that car dealership saying, well, I don't know, are we going to sponsor a kid that's underage drinking? I can't. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So there's going to be scenarios and situations that across this nation schools are going to have to address as they go through this.
Yeah. It's so much change. It started, I think it was in April when they said, the college football video games come back. I'm like, let's go. And then just from now to now, just like Oklahoma and Texas are leaving, the players can get paid now, and the players can just transfer, don't have to sit out. It's just a ton of change. And as an Iowa State fan, I'm all over the place every day. I just need football season to start, because as soon as Breece Hall scores his first touchdown, all this kind of quiets down.
The world will be good again.
Yeah.
So think of change, right? There's people that when these came out, that was change, right?
Oh, yeah.
It scared the heck out of people.
Mm-hmm.
Still does.
Right? It still scares
My
people,
generation,
right?
it still does. Yeah.
But are they in a better place because of this, in a worse place, right? Are we further ahead because of that's debatable, right?
Right, yeah.
But we are now comfortable with it, and we're in a different place. Change is going to happen. Don't fight what change is going to happen. Understand that we have the right people in there to direct us and where we're going to go. Yeah. And we will be in a better place, just no different than a phone.
That's a good comparison. As you know, that thing made parenting harder.
It did.
It made being a teenager harder. But there's also parts of it that's made it easier, too. So it's managing it just like anything else.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think people are horns down and let's push OU into the ground. But it's that change happened. Look, that got announced. Let's go. Where are we going? Okay, well, guess what? Trust Jamie Pollard.
We didn't talk about this, but when you played at Lubbock, maybe I've told
Yes.
you the story. I've told you the story before, haven't I?
I don't know.
When you played at Lubbock, I believe it was your senior. No, it was 1999. Buddy of mine, another huge Iowa State fan. I call him. We were living in New Mexico. That's where he was born. I said, hey, why don't you come down? We'll drive over to Lubbock and watch Iowa State play. And so he said, sure. So we drive all the way across New Mexico, go into Lubbock, pull in the parking lot. There's one Iowa State flag, and it's an RV. He goes, hey, those are the guys that I tailgate next to. We walk up to it, and it's your mom and dad and your grandma, grandpa, and the whole Harklau clan there. And then I started talking to them because I knew a lot of them too. So there's a lot of history in all of these and a lot of money behind them, a lot of the events too. But
they are. It's awesome though. I come in here and smile. I'm a Cyclone. And that's so you come see this, and it's like all the great memories of where we're at.
Right.
And it's pretty cool room.
So tell us a little bit your new job. To the sideline reporter. Tell us a little bit how that came about and what your role is going to be on game days.
So my role, in my opinion, is to tell the player's story, right? As much as I possibly can, paint the picture where they're at, and tell the fan base, this is how we're here. Here's where we're at. But I think it's important for our fan base to understand this team, and I think it's understand these players, because these players are special, and I want to tell their story as much as possible. So when I'm on the pregame show with Learfield, or when I'm doing the sideline reporting or the interview with Coach Campbell at halftime, I want to paint it around this and really talk about these players and tell their story, and represent them the best that I possibly can. I've stood in their shoes. I've walked through a lot of the hallways were knocked down that I used to walk through, but I've been a part of something that they are a part of as well. It's like, it's that fraternity. Now they're years ahead of where we were, literally and figuratively, but they are years ahead of where we were at that time. And I want to do whatever I can to tell the story, how they got here, so the fan base understands what they've done for our enjoyment.
Right.
It's now they're going to remember it the rest of their life, but you got to understand it's for our enjoyment. Like, we get to walk in there on a Saturday with a smile on our face with our kids, and you have memories the rest of your life because of the work and sweat and the tears that they put in on that January day where we didn't even know that they were working. And I think in my role, that is my job, to talk about that process of getting to where they're at. It's easy to say, they won X amount of games this year. I think the fan needs to understand what it takes to win X amount of games. And like we talked about earlier in this podcast, is winning. What does it take to win? Winning
in the dark, isn't that what he started off saying? I mean,
I can remember that.
Part of it, yeah.
And like what I just thought of the fan interaction thing. Like these players that are really good players, but they're probably really good dudes too, that can actually meet these little kids and like take autographs. Like, that's been missing the last a year, which that's like for fans, like those little interactions when you're little, like you're a Cyclone fan for life.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be exciting to see.
I can tell you that the players that are in that locker room right now, like there's not a player in there that you wouldn't want your kid around. There's not a player in there you wouldn't want to be around.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the cool thing about that culture. Those players want to be around each other, but it's not like, oh yeah, but there's this, knock on wood, but you don't hear the noise of problems in there because of the people that are in there.
Sure.
It's a great locker room right now. So you're right. I can't wait for these fans to get out and appreciate these players live again, but also, just to thank them for what they've done and thank them for coming back to provide us entertainment basically on Saturdays.
Yeah. Like Which is what it is. I mean, we still have to remember that. I mean, it is still entertainment, and they're in some cases they're way football is. I mean, I've got a pin in my shoulder from playing high school football, and you've had a broken foot a couple times, or probably you can tell when it rains, and the whole 9 yards. Now, I mean, there is some risk that goes along with playing this sport that is a huge moneymaker for every university.
Right.
Like we won the Fiesta Bowl. We got to remember that, right? We imagine imagine Fiesta Bowl there with our fans there, obviously, but like them coming back, like if we had like a party of like them bringing the trophy back, which we didn't get to have. Yeah. Like there's like so much going into the CUNI game it's 30 days away. Keep counting down. And
Todd Blythe said it best. He goes, we need to go in and look like the team that we all know that we are out of the gates, because we've had too many years where the first game is always a struggle, or we're still trying to put things together. Last year, obviously, COVID had a lot to do with it. So if we go out and come out and look like we know that we can look like, then the momentum train is going to be moving a lot further down the tracks.
Yep. And then the hate week after that, the Iowa game after that week. Oh man!
So do you get to travel with the team? You fly in the plane and the whole bit. You go on road games, the whole 9 yards.
Whole thing. Yep. Yeah. So every home away game, everything else, we'll do a couple of the coaches show on Monday nights with Coach Campbell.
Oh really?
Yep.
Oh, very good.
Yep.
Wow,
so it'll be an amazing. I am blessed to have this opportunity to be around the program, and like I've said earlier as well, Coach Campbell makes everyone better. The closer you get to him, the better you get.
Sure.
Right? I'm selfishly getting way more out of this than anyone else is, because I get to listen to his speeches. I get to hear the pregame. I get to see how he prepares, and it allows me to take that into my business world.
Oh, sure.
I mean, like I said, Coach Campbell is probably, think of the impact he's had on the economy in Iowa, just being a leader in Iowa.
Right.
Because you learn from the people that you're around and listen to, and that person, having him be in our ears and dropping the liners that you hear, fall in love with the process will love you back, right? And and so that stuff changes you as a person, and having things like him teach you how to lead and how to live life is making all of us better.
Yeah. Ben Bruns was like my childhood. Ben Bruns was so knowledgeable, and it's just very fitting. Like I get to meet you now, and you are perfect fit for that, because you grew up Cyclone, played Iowa State. You're very knowledgeable, obviously.
Yeah, we're going to miss you, because you have been our color commentator for. You're not going to do Humboldt games, I'm assuming.
No,
anymore.
no more Humboldt games.
Yeah, I mean, and you did a phenomenal job of that. My son's going to be a junior this year, and I was really looking forward to that again because with COVID, everybody was watching him on YouTube TV or whatever, or the YouTube streaming, and that was what kept my 87-year-old mom entertained last winter, and so we're hoping that can continue. But Iowa State's getting a good one because we've seen you in action with the Humboldt games, and I'm sure I'm a little jealous of you because it's going to be a lot of fun for you too. I mean,
everybody should be jealous of me. I got the greatest job. I don't have the pressure of John and Eric of talking the whole time, but I get to experience a lot of the things that are going to happen and be around. And it's, I don't know, as a Cyclone fan, smile. Don't be scared.
Sure.
Right? Smile. It's you can smile. I mean, it's all this distraction, the conference talk. Smile. We got the right people in the right chairs. You got the right leadership. Smile your way through it, right? Mm-hmm. There's always going to be change, and guess what? There's going to be change 10 years from now. And guess what? We're going to have a different quarterback someday.
Sure, right, yeah. Believe
Smile.
it or not.
We're going to have a different running back.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, David Montgomery's gone. We can't. How do we wake up today? Smile. You got the right guy leading this. Yeah. You have the right guy leading the program. We have the right guy leading our university with the athletic department with Jamie, and you have a reason to smile. Don't be nervous. Like I think it's like, oh my gosh, they're going to ruin the season because now this distract. No, we've got the right leadership in the athletic department. We have the right leadership in that football locker room. Mm-hmm. You have a reason to smile. Enjoy it.
That's well put.
Yeah,
very well put.
That's a great way to end it, and we really appreciate you coming on. And go Cyclones.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Ryan.
Absolutely, go Cyclones.
You bet.